This is Your Pain Game podcast, where we talk about the game of living in and with chronic pain and trauma, getting to the heart of how to heal. I am your host, Lyndsay Soprano. On the show, I plan on discussing with doctors, chronic pain patients, holistic practitioners, loved ones, and anybody that is interested in having their voice heard in the chronic pain and trauma world that we live in. So ever since I was a little girl of 9 years old, I would say, I was an insomniac riddled with debilitating anxiety. And those who have listened to the show know that that is the case, that I am a massive anxiety ball all of the time. And starting at such a young age, dealing with anxiety, not really understanding exactly why I had anxiety at such a young age. I know now, I didn't at the time. But I created all of these like cute little coping mechanisms to maintain my sanity all night long while I was not sleeping. And some might say that the word sanity and Lyndsay in one sentence probably should not be combined because I'm a little insane. And you're probably right. I don't want to be sane. I like being a little crazy because how boring to not be a little insane, right? But anyway, so I started developing these coping mechanisms that I created that turned into this intense amount of OCD. And it's something that I struggle with on a daily, as does my loved one. My sweetie's like, my God. And he witnesses this insanity from time to time. And I'm not saying OCD equals insane. I am speaking of me only. And my tendencies really got into as a kid when I was trying to keep myself occupied all night long was organization and color coding and label spacing out and all that awesome stuff. My parents would come in the middle of the night and I would be like dragging my bed from one side of the room to another. I'd be pulling my desk apart. I would be completely organizing my closet again because I just didn't have anything to do. What I have found through doing this show, and after almost 45 years of me being who I am, that I've had to look back at the reasons why I put in these coping mechanisms, the reasons why I am still that person, the reason why, if everything isn't just so, I can't keep going on with my day until something is fixed. And it's really obnoxious and annoying and time consuming to the point that's like, I wake up in the morning and until X, Y, and Z is done and straight and perfect, I cannot focus on my job. I cannot focus on my show. I cannot do these things. Because in and of itself, that cleanliness and that OCD and that organization part of me, which was a coping mechanism, has now continued to follow me into adulthood. And now I'm still stuck in that space. And I'm trying to figure out the reasons why. And like I said, through doing this show, the number one reason is trauma, at least for me. And so now while doing this show, I'm finding out more about myself. I'm finding out more about myself from my guests. Teaching me some of the errors of my ways, teaching me things that I did not really know before. And these are things that we need to work on as adults as we look back at things that have happened to us and why we do the things that we do. And I've put into place a couple little things. And one of them is like on Sunday mornings, I won't make our bed anymore. And it is fucking torture. I hate it. I walk by the bed all day. I go in and I am like losing my freaking mind because it is not made. And yes, we circle back to the sanity plea. I'm a little bit crazy when it comes to it, but I'm not alone in it. So without further ado, I am going to bring on my guest today. Her name is Tonia Cordi. Hi, honey.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to talk to you today. Tonia is a life alignment coach and professional organizer who started her business in 2014. She's worked over the years to help people like myself understand the why behind their life clutter, or people like myself, the declutterers, and organizing for good and healing from past trauma. So thanks for being here with me today, girl.
Oh, I'm excited. I was hearing you talk and I'm like, yep, that's what I do. That's what I do.
Yep, me.
Yep.
Well, I'm rolling out the red carpet for you. And I'd like to start with why you ended up leaving your elementary teaching position, because she was an elementary school teacher, and why you moved into being a life alignment coach and professional organizer. And then let's take it from there.
Yes, many different reasons. One, the work environment was just too much, too intense all the time, and you couldn't teach anymore. So after 12 years, I had tried everything. I tried different positions, and I was just like, I'm done. I'm done. So it was hard because I loved working with kids, but I didn't feel like I could do what I was meant to do. And that was really helping people connect to their passion, helping people connect to their purpose. And I was always motivating kids. And so that plus just a life, you said 9 years old, I started laughing. I'm like, yep, that's when I started realizing how crazy things were at home. And I was like, this doesn't make sense. And I was literally reorganizing things in my bedroom. I would get rid of stuff, reorganize. I was the one who had the clean bedroom. My sister was the one who had the disaster. And then I was helping people. And then someone, who knew me at the time was like, why don't you just do this as a business and forget teaching? And I was like, yeah, you know what? I'm done. And so I started with more of a professional organizer lens. But I would say because my background was in psychology and education, I would go into people's homes ready to help them change. And they were like, no, I just want you to put things in boxes. And so it took a while to shift everything to get people to understand, no, I'm coming to your house to help you understand the why. And organizing is just one small fraction of what I'm here for.
Yeah. And I find that very interesting because I would love for you to come into my living space and be like, okay, she said she's OCD. Because I'm like looking around my studio right now. I'm like, everything feels wonkadoo in here, but I know that there is a reason for why it's where it is. It might not, it's like my beautiful disaster, and it's really hard to take that out of me. And it comes to a point where like I'll have friends that will stay here and watch the house and the dogs while we're traveling or what have you. And the entire time I'm like checking my webcam, like I need to make sure like things are in order. I'm like, Lyndsay, this is freaking ridiculous. Like, don't spy on your dog and house sitter.
Love it.
But literally all I'm looking at is like, did they put the dog bowls in the right place in front of the microwave 2 feet across from each other? Like, that's all I'm looking for. It's just nuts. And it makes you feel a little crazy. So when you go into these people's homes and you assess their clutter, their hoard, if you will, in some cases, what is your process like for people? Because I know everyone's a little bit different, but can you give us like an example of what you do? And I'd love to hear a story of like one of your craziest experiences in somebody's home too. So pull that one out of your hat.
Well, that's a big question. So
I know, and I didn't prep you for it, which is fine because that's how I love doing this show anyway.
I would say first thing, side note, everybody's a hoarder because everyone holds on to things for the wrong reason. And I don't usually say right or wrong. I take that out of my vocabulary, but they're holding on to it for reasons that don't make sense anymore. Let's put it that way. And the other piece is, if I can comment on what you were sharing, a lot of this need to have things a certain way, whether it's clutter mess or clutter organization, or it's holding on, and holding on is familiar and it's safety.
Yeah.
Anxiety is actually about, it's a label that's been slapped on because here you go, you can have a pill for it. That doesn't fix the anxiety. It's about the nervous system not feeling safe. It's about not being able to control a situation and knowing the outcome. Because if you can't have things the same every single day, that's unexpected, that's unknown, that's the nervous system going alert, alert, fire alarm, because the brain, the body, the spirit has been hardwired from these past experiences to be afraid. But you're not living in the past anymore, but your nervous system and your body and your mind and spirit are living in the past.
Yeah, we talk about that with trauma. I mean, my gosh.
Exactly. So it's when I go into someone's home, I've seen everything. And it's people, like everyone will have a different way to fold. Everyone's going to have a different way to wash dishes. And everyone's going to be like, no, this is the way you do it. A thought creates your reality. Your point of view creates your reality. So once you're aware of that, then you realize that there is no right or wrong way. It's just how do you feel like doing it?
So what you're saying is that my way is not right. I don't care for this. It was nice knowing you. It's been a pleasure, Tonia. It was lovely meeting you.
And it's been interesting, like living with someone now and making that shift that I do things a certain way. We get into a habit because it's easy, it's fast. I don't have to change. Like you're just in this rhythm. Change means more time, more energy, more effort. It means challenging yourself, taking a risk. And people don't want to do that, especially if they've experienced a lot of trauma, because that's too much stress on the nervous system. So the way I work is 3 phases. The first phase is, well, let's assess what your core values are and look at what you want to create in your life. Because if you're holding on to the past, whether it's in your physical belongings, how you do things, your reactions, your responses, behaviors, habits, points of view, the list goes on, because it's not just the physical spaces. We identify that and then we look at, okay, well, what do we need to release that's not allowing you to create that? If you want more time to do meditation, but you don't have it because you're spending a significant amount of time setting up your space in the morning to be a specific way, then how are you going to do that meditation? You can't. So what are we going to let go of? And it's not just the physical belonging is a great way to get it started, because then we ever uncovered the clinging on and why there's that attachment. And once we uncover the attachment and the belief and everything, we don't have to dig into the trauma to do this. Then you release it and you go, oh, and then it just shifts your point of view. And then it has a ripple effect on your behaviors, your habits, how you engage in things. So it's all connected. It's not just about letting go of the belongings. It's all the questions that I ask during the process. And then the second phase is getting into your natural rhythm. And that's about what are we going to do to support your nervous system so that your window of tolerance gets bigger, so you feel safe again. And how are you going to spend your time? Because now you know that what you want to create, you're reconnecting with yourself. You're reconnecting with your power and purpose. How are we going to organize your life to match that? Because now your space has been addressed and all the beliefs and everything that were holding you back from making the time to do this. And then the third phase is, I love alliteration. So passion, power, and purpose. And it's like, think of people when they're children before maybe things got hard. There was a playfulness, a curiosity, freedom, joy, creativity, ease, just being present. That's ventral vagal. That's being your power. So once you have your spaces and your natural rhythm and you've released a chunk of what's been holding you back, you can now put your energy into your life purpose. And it doesn't have to be a business. I do the business side of coaching. It's what do you want to cultivate in your life that's your life purpose? It could be, oh, I want to have very loving, meaningful relationships. Or, oh, I want to help people, create beautiful works of art because they're talented. They just don't know that they can do it, or whatever it may be.
Right. And they might be hiding behind things that happened to them that they're not necessarily sure that they're hiding, that they even are hiding behind that. And I find that so incredibly interesting. I have somebody that's in my world who is a legitimate hoarder, not as bad as like the TV show hoarders where there's like dead cats and dead rats and dead animals that are there. But you're talking about a 9,000 square foot hoard from every cupboard, every drawer, the entire garage, just 3-car garage from the floor to the ceiling to the roof line, which is a huge roof line. It's not like a small garage. Goes all the way up to the roof of a 9,000 square foot, and the entire garage is a hoard on top of the rest of the home. And she keeps things like her daughters, like all of their stuffed animals, has all of them. They're 27.
It's holding
has
on.
all of them. And she's holding on to so much stuff. And it's to a point where it's just out of control. Yep. And they won't let go of anything. An envelope from mail, like it's getting stacked and stacked and stacked. And it's gotten to a point that it's really, really sad. And then dementia has kind of started to play into that because she's fairly older and in her late 70s. And, it's a challenge in that regard because what do you do when you have smaller cases per se versus bigger cases? Like obviously you go into a home like that one, that's a bigger elephant.
Yeah, and I don't work with individuals who, there's different, like here in Canada, we have different levels of identifying it, like level 1, 2, 3, and 4. That sounds like it's a level 4. For me, I work with people who are more like level 1, 2. It's people who are living their life, but then there's these big gaps. Like they just can't seem to get the time management, or they can't seem to keep their space organized, or There's just holes, because with trauma comes gaps in learning and gaps in brain development. That, there's this whole thing of ADHD. Well, I did a video on this and a blog. ADHD is really just the brain on trauma. So if you look at this, at the list of things that happen to the brain, if you've experienced a lot of trauma, especially childhood, and you look at ADHD, it's the same thing.
Interesting.
It's pretty much the same thing. And so it's executive functioning. It wasn't developed. And so when I work with people, it's teaching them, because you can learn that stuff. So I work with people who are functioning, but they're not functioning at the level that they could be, because they have these gaps. And everybody has different puzzle, different pieces that are missing. Nobody has the exact same pieces that are missing.
Yeah, I always like to use puzzles in relation to me specifically, because I always, even in my business as well, I love putting together puzzle pieces to things. It's always I get a new client and I've got to figure out where all the pieces are. Okay, there's 20 in a couch cushions underneath here. We got to find those. The whole process that I go through to kind of put together their puzzle. It feels like that's kind of similar, even though mine's very different on the people that I deal with. But the gaps and the holes in our understanding and our learning and our ways of developing is so interesting, because I'm sitting here, of course, my brain's okay, so 9, 13, 17, 20, 20, 21, 23. How many of these can I line up and go, okay, where did all of these gaps happen? And now I'm kind of freaking out.
No, don't freak out.
I'm oh my God. And I'm a pretty high functioning person, even in the midst of my shit, I am. And I've always been that way. But I'm man, I could be so much stronger and so much better if I could plug some of these holes, or at least release some of the gross gas that needs to come out of whatever that trauma was or whatever it is. So when you come in, how long do you work with people typically? So you come in and you start working with them. I mean, obviously there's probably some ongoing part, but can you talk a little bit about hopping in and getting in when somebody wants to work with somebody like you? What is their experience like, and how long do you typically work with people that are at a 1-2? Obviously not
level 4. Yeah.
Level 4. Yeah.
It really depends. It's kind of like a Pandora's box, because once you open it up, you can go on forever.
Sure.
And so it depends on how deep someone wants to go. Generally, for a physical space, depending on, can a person do stuff outside of sessions? So if I'm going in person, I'll go in person first. And it could be a couple months doing weekly sessions, and then shifting to online to weekly sessions. And I would say, if a person wants that true change, because it's not going to happen overnight, I would say 1 to 2 years. And when I say 2 years, it's we're doing check-ins every 2 weeks, every month, just to I don't want to say fine tune, but just to make sure that you're on track, because there's that accountability piece. Because I don't believe in inner work. I believe in discovery and transformation, and being curious and having fun with this, and being able to laugh, how you're making fun of yourself. And that's what we need to do. Why do we need to make this this scary thing that we have to face? Why not have fun with it?
Look, I agree with that approach, because that's one of the reasons why I did this, I do the show the way that I do it, is because if I can't laugh through the crap that's been dished, then I've got no hope.
Yep.
And neither do you. If you're going to sit there, and I'm not talking to you, Tonia, I'm talking to you, my listeners. Well, maybe you too, my love. No, but it's if you are not going to be able to laugh through some of the painful things in life, then you've got some bigger problems to address, because that's the only way that I get through, is being a little depraved, using the F word. I know you love it as well. But we have to give ourselves some grace and laugh a little bit about our life and enjoy the experience, even though it's hard.
Yes. And it's not to say, don't cry, or, be positive. Feel the emotions and just approach the situation with a little bit of lightness. So that more, focused time of really being consistent and doing a lot would be about 6 months.
Yeah. Okay.
It depends on the individual, but I would say at least 6 months to be quite consistent. And with that, it's about kind of just dipping in and dipping out, right? We don't have to sit in it all the time. It's being able to flow in and out, and not be so obsessed and focused about this inner work all the time. because then it takes over. We want to be present, just life, and then dip in when we can and be like, oh, look, I'm doing this differently now. And then
So
pull
just close my master bedroom doors on Sundays and don't think about it for the entire day.
How can you see that? Like, what else is possible in that situation to have fun? Because when you were describing it, I'm like, okay, you know what you can do? You can like go jump in your bed and be like, oh, look, I can take a nap and like play with the covers and like just like get all snug like a dog would and like play. What would a kid do?
So I
Right?
just have a pillow fight in my panties with one of my girlfriends.
Or just sit in your bed and have a tea. Like,
all right, man. All right. Simmer down, guys. Simmer down. I know that's what you think we all do when we hang out, but I can tell you it's not what we do. We
never.
bitch about you. We bitch about you. And then we want to have a pillow fight with you. No, but it's just one of those things that's like, it's retraining my brain to not see things the way I see them. Like, for example, I think I've told this story before on the show, but I'm going to tell it again just in case. I'm in the supermarket not that long ago. Well, it was probably a couple months ago. And my sweetie's with me and we're walking down the aisle, and there are like the tuna cans on the right-hand side and they are not facing labels facing front. They're not. And I walk by it and then I'm like, hey, honey, like, will you go grab, whatever the heck you needed to grab? Tell him what to grab. I went back to the aisle and I fixed every damn tuna can in the aisle. And I'm like, what kind of monster does this? Like, it is insane sometimes that I cannot help myself. Even like in our refrigerator, he and I will be standing there, we'll be like wanting to grab something and I'll just like, whoop, like turn something from the left to the right because now it is the way that it is. But it's not like that in every single facet of my life. Like there are places where I do tend to not be quite as crazy as that, where everything cannot be perfectly in order. And I've just had to accept some of that. But part of it gives me such anxiety when I see something like stacked that isn't the way that it should be, or there's something that I forgot to do. And I'm not somebody that forgets things. And with my brain pain baloney that I have, I know that I deal with a lot more brain fog than I'm used to. So I'm struggling with that because some of the things that I used to spend a lot of time on in my OCD and in my organization, I can't do because of my pain level or because I have to focus on something a little bit more important. And I'm starting to see that as I'm releasing some of the trapped emotion. Okay. Now I have the hiccups. Good for you guys. This is great. This is going to be fun. The trapped emotions that I've kept and that I've held in my bod for so long are starting to slowly kind of release. And I'm starting to see these changes, but they're slow and gradual. And all of a sudden, like sneak up on me, even though it was slow. All of a sudden, that slow is like, well, that was 6 months ago. I started approaching a topic or an issue. And now I'm starting to get out of the weeds from it. So it is a process and it's not going to get fixed overnight, like you said. We do have to give ourselves the grace and the time to do some work within ourselves, of course, but also to not live in perfectionism and dysfunction and where that all leads, because we all have our shit. We all do, and we're hiding behind a lot of it.
Oh, big time.
Yeah.
And I would just say, add on to what you shared, is that when people have these habits, like you're talking about yourself and, having to adjust labels and whatnot, that is just, there was a need that wasn't met. And then you developed a coping mechanism. So if we can trace back to what need wasn't met, and then the coping mechanism and the belief and the story around it, then it just dissolves.
Huh.
Because I had a client, you asked for an example. I'll give you an example. It's not a crazy one, but.
Oh, I only want crazy here.
Sorry.
Just crazy on this show. Thank you very much.
She was forced to do tutoring and was punished for not being able to clean her room as a child. She struggled with ADHD. And what happened was, as an adult, what do you think happened? As an adult, she would procrastinate with work and she would procrastinate with cleaning her room. Why? Because she was still rebelling. But as soon as we figured out that connection, she's like, oh my goodness, I never realized that connection. As soon as we saw that, I do like different mindfulness practices and like somatic work. We do phrases. I do a variety of things to help release it and shift it in the subconscious. Once we did that exercise, that need to do that, it dissipated.
Hmm.
So you were able to find the anchor of what caused that pattern. And so that's the pieces of the puzzle that I do. That's why when people are letting go of stuff, they're like, oh no, I need it. Well, why do you need it? And then I just keep on asking questions. And sometimes people think I'm judging. I'm like, no, I'm just asking questions so that I understand. And then when I understand, you start going, oh, and then we figure it out.
Man, do I have pirate ships just like anchored all over the place. All right. Like we've got a lot of work to do.
Oh.
Maybe we're going to find some treasure on those ships. I don't know. But I mean, it's nuts. The psyche is so incredible when you think about the things that we've been through at such a young age. We don't think anything of it. We just don't. And we always are like, oh, when we're teenagers in college, we have nothing can kill us. We can do whatever we want to. Everything's going to be fine. And then you look back at some of the things that were absolutely horrible things that happened to me. I also did stupid shit. Like, absolutely. Like, I caused problems for myself. I caused my own traumas. I know those places. Those I've addressed. I have not addressed the places where trauma was caused to me that I had no control over.
Okay.
And those are the places that I think are like, I'm looking at my studio desk right now. I'm like, okay, this little bit of unorganization is stuff I've addressed, that all of my labels facing out and up. And I did it this morning. I literally cleaned out the entire refrigerator this morning because I had an Instacart order being delivered and I needed to make sure that everything was going to be just right and just so and all of that. So this morning, instead of prepping more to talk with you, I didn't need much because you're so wonderful. I decided that cleaning my refrigerator was a much better use of my time. Complete bullshit. I was so pissed off at myself because I could not stop. I couldn't stop. I canceled something else. I canceled another something else to make sure that I was going to get that done. So dumb. Like,
no, stop beating yourself up. No.
Okay. It's not dumb. It's absolutely wonderful behavior, Lyndsay.
Well, it's just...
Which is it, Tonia?
It's that you're so used to doing this, and it's about finding the why. Like, what is it that you need? What is it that you need that's causing you to do that? What happened before that developed this, right? Because you were talking about sleeping, and we don't have to do this here, but do you know what I mean? Like, it's going to that anchor of like, what is this all about? What is this need to do that? And control and controlling environments and situations and things need to be a certain way is safety. And two things come up for me. I don't know if it's for you, but just in general, when I work with people, perfectionism I see a lot with people because that means no criticism. So a lot of people grew up in dysfunctional families, criticism. But if I'm perfect, nobody can say anything, right? So that's one.
Damn you.
The other one is just the general safety. So if I can control the environment, I can predict what's going to happen, which keeps me safe because the trauma was not predictable. Right? So it's looking at how can we take that experience of where that connection was made and doing some subconscious work and embodiment to let your nervous system know you are safe now.
Safety is a unfortunate topic that is brought up in my life almost every day.
Oh yeah.
It's in my relationship with my sweetie, not because it's like an unsafe thing between he and I, but it's safety as a whole in my life that he and I struggle with. And there are elements where he just doesn't get it. And I don't even know how to explain it without like rehashing old trauma and taking wounds that have since been healed. At least we thought they were, at least, and going, okay, now I'm ripping out all of those stitches. I'm ripping out all of that stuff. And I've got to readjust that stuff. So can you approach that? Because she's shaking her head no at me. But that's what I knew you were going to shake your head no. I want you to talk about that for a sec, because I know that is where fear lies in people that have safety issues and people that have OCD tendencies or are hoarders or what have you, who are holding on. If you can approach that topic, I think that's a biggie.
Yeah. And thank you for sharing that, because I can relate a lot, right? My nervous system is on high alert. It's gotten better because I've really focused on strengthening my nervous system. And there's 3 areas that we need as children when we're developing: the need for safety, the need for unconditional love, and the need for boundaries. So I won't go into those too much. I have a YouTube video you can watch on it. And with those needs not being met, we then develop coping mechanisms to compensate. And when we're in that place where we're not feeling safe, it could be like a micro moment, like a split second of a facial expression, of a gesture. It could be anything that sets off the nervous system to that memory. And then you're in a flashback. So there's a difference between a trigger and a flashback. A trigger is like pressing the button and then something happens. So the trigger is the immediate of like, oh, this reminds me of, and then the body's having its response. That's the flashback. You could be in a flashback for 5 minutes, 5 days, 5 weeks, 5 months, right? Because you could keep on getting trapped in it and keep on getting triggered.
Flashback for 45 years.
I know it.
This is the world's longest flashback.
So the key is you don't have to tell your sweetie what happened. You just say, sweetie, I'm having a flashback, and you work on coming back to ventral vagal and whatever is in your toolbox to do that. So when I work with people, we have a toolbox to strengthen. So daily practices to strengthen your nervous system. And then we have a toolbox of, okay, when you're way out and you know your F type, if you're flight, freeze, fawn, or fight, freeze, or fawn, one of those, you know what to do for each of them. And you know the red flags of which state you're in. What do I need to do to get back into ventral vagal? And that becomes the focus. And by doing that, you're just strengthening your nervous system. You're coming back to ventral vagal. And then you're telling your brain, oh, guess what? I'm safe. So you don't have to relive things. Like that's old. That's not talk therapy. Talk therapy hardwires the trauma. Because then you keep on reliving it.
Woman!
Enough.
She's putting people out of business over here left and right, isn't she?
I'm going to take this a step further. In America, we live in a quick fix society. Pop a pill, go shopping, watch this. You being out of ventral vagal gives money to consumerism. But if you're in ventral vagal all the time, then you can't make money. So it's about, and then you said, I'm going to put people out of business. Well, yeah, because then if you're always in ventral vagal, you don't need to go to that therapist. You're not going to need to see me forever. That's not the point. The point is to get to a place where you can stand on your 2 feet and be solid and go out into the world alone because you've gained the skills you need to gain and you've let go what was holding you back. And then you're on your own. And you've created the social network and the community and the support that you need because trauma equals isolation and shame.
Big time. Yeah, big time. Especially the isolation. Well, I get both isolation and shame. I mean, I've worked from home forever, 24 years. So I'm used to my space. I'm used to everything being just so. And I'm used to my timelines and I'm used to the discipline that I have placed in my life since I was, 23 years ago, And it's hard when people come into my space and are even there, even if they come over for dinner.
Yeah.
There's a couple of them, my girlfriends that are awesome. They always clean up the kitchen or they're picking up, they're helping me out. Like one of them will just, my sister, well, obviously my sister, she'll grab the vacuum and just start randomly vacuuming or whatever. And then there's a couple that they just have dinner and they put their dishes in the sink and they don't care and they don't thank and they're ungrateful and what have you. But I'm now you've gotten in my space and you've changed every single thing about how I wanted this night to go. And I let dishes in the sink derail me.
Okay.
Because I find disrespect when it comes to that somebody didn't do it on my timeline when I wanted it done at the time I wanted it, the way I wanted it. And if they had done it anyways, I would have rewashed their dishes and put them in the right way in the damn dishwasher. It's oh my God, Lyndsay, it's insane. I cannot have those two. I'm so Gemini. That two side of me where it's I want everything done the way that I want it done because this is the way that it should be done because these are the rules that have been in place in my life forever. And then there's a side of me that's really trying to break free from it to a certain extent by letting people come in and help me with some things. And then I end up just redoing them. And it's just really frustrating.
Yeah. It's that I'm hearing that black and white again. And that's very, very common with most people, right? And when you're in that black and white thinking, then it creates separation.
Yeah.
And divide and judgment.
And resent.
Yes, you're judging yourself. You're judging other people. You're resenting others. You're resenting yourself. You're beating yourself up. You're beating them up.
Yes.
Instead of it just being an experience and just observing and being oh, they're the type of people that when they come over, they put in the dishes. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, cool. Okay, they're the type of people that come over and don't do anything because they were raised that when you go to someone's house, the other person's hosting. Everyone has a different point of view. So there's no
I don't like that view though.
So then you ask, say, hey, I love having people over. It's a lot for me because of X, Y, and Z, or it means a lot for me when it's like a co-creation, what are you really good at? And being able to let that go. Because no one wants to be bossed around when they're going to someone's house. And it's true.
I am dead. I am dead. I'm probably the person that would have like stickers that instead of my name it's like you're in charge of. I don't know if you're a Seinfeld fan, but
oh yeah,
there's a Seinfeld episode with I don't remember what party they were at. I think it wasn't Tim Watley. It was the other guy. The guy like did the snaps all the time. He's like, you're in charge of making sure nobody taps on the fish tank.
I remember that.
Right. And there was like, you're in charge of music. You're in charge of coats. Right. And that's when Elaine goes in and there's two of the same coats. Anyways, but that's what I feel like that. Like if people come over, I'm like, I don't want them to feel that way. But I also want people to understand if they know me as well as they do. It's one thing if you're having a big party and you're entertained. You're talking about your best friends that come over. They know who I am. They know what I'm like. If the situation was reversed, I would be cognitive of their particular living environment and the way that they live, but that's also who I am. Like I'm always considering what other people are doing and what she is not happy with me right now, guys. If you saw her, she is shaking her finger at me and I don't care for it.
That is not you. Those are habits.
What do you mean? What do you mean?
When you say like, that's who I am, that's not who you are. Those are coping strategies. Those are preferences. That's not who you are as that's not your spirit. That's not who you are inside. Someone who wants everything to be a certain way. So by clinging to those labels and asking other people, and I'm going to call you out on this because it's going to
No, call me out. Everybody call me out. I'm not one that does not like to be called out. Call me out.
It's enabling, right? Because then when you expect people to accommodate, it then enables. So yes, you want people to support when you're slowly shifting out of those safety mechanisms, right? Because you don't want to put too much stress. And having those conversations with friends like, hey, this is how I normally do it. Today, I want to try this. Let's see what happens and play a game. Let's see what happens if I don't put the dishes in the dishwasher and you guys do. And then we have to turn the dishwasher on and I'm not allowed to turn it off. Let's see what happens.
The question is, did they rinse the cheese off of the plate first? Because if anybody in this world is any bit of a human, please just wash the cheese off the dishes before you put them in the dishwasher. Just do it. Don't anticipate that this hot water is going to make it work because it doesn't. You have to put some elbow grease in. Okay, that's it.
Have faith and trust. Have faith and trust the dishwasher.
But when I've done that, and I have, it is a disaster.
Okay.
And that is me, just like I said in the beginning about my bed not being made. It's torture. Okay, maybe it's not a disaster. Maybe it's not torture. It feels that way though at the time because I don't understand how it is possible that somebody would come over and have dinner and not assist in helping or at least ask. Or I don't understand, like, how did you not see like the mountain of crumb cake that you have on the counter? Why did you not like take the sponge and wash it down? It dry. And it's little things like that add up over time within every one of my relationships. And I am the first person to say that this is who I am. And I know that it has caused harm in some of my friendships.
Yeah.
I know that it has because I've gotten resentful. I've gotten pissed off. I'm like, come on, dude, like help me out. I need a little help. And when I ask for it, which is hard for me to do, I still get let down. So then I end up not asking for help again. And then the vicious cycle begins.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. I definitely struggled with that when my sweetheart moved in because I was like, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing?
What is happening here?
I know, exactly. And then I was like, oh, I'm just going to train him. Right? Nope.
Girl!
So what has happened now?
Never worked. Never.
He made a comment the other day and I laughed because he was like, what's going on here? He goes, you said you wanted the house clean, this, that, and the other. That's not that the house was messy. Like, it's not that our place was gross or anything, but I had let it go because I stopped micromanaging. I stopped keeping tally. I was keeping tally. Oh, he did this. I have to do this. Like, so I was stopping the micromanaging and like focusing on all that and taking a step back. I think with trauma, what happens is we focus on the micro. We try to do the prevention. And then we get lost from the big picture.
Sure.
He's a loving, sweet man who's very giving and does a lot in the relationship. And as the more I could see that and trust that, I let go. And now we're in this beautiful rhythm. And it's not like, oh, I cooked today, you have to cook tomorrow, or I did the dishes, you have to do this. Like, it's not this check mark. And that's indicative of dysfunctional families too, like blaming each other, saying, oh, you did this. And like, what's the term for it? Like keeping tabs. But there's also,
I like the tallying, the keeping tabs.
and you owe me. There's this idea of you owe me, right? So when we dissolve that, then there isn't this need and there isn't this judgment of things having to be done a certain way and making assumptions that everyone has to do it your way. And like all those different belief systems and points of view, they just kind of dissolve. The more you can see the big picture and focus on what's most important. Well, what's most important is that we have a nice dinner together and that we eat healthy and that the dishes get done at some
whenever they get it done. Yeah.
Like, they get done in a very reasonable time, but you know what I mean? Like it doesn't have to be perfect.
I love talking to you about this though, because it is something that is loud and clear in my ears, because I know that obviously everybody that's listening to this episode knows. See, I'm circling back to the beginning, guys, where I was talking about Lyndsay and sanity in the same sentence. Now you understand what I'm talking about. But I know that this is an element of my life that I need to work on. I mean, it's not even an element. It is a huge part of my life and a huge part of who I am. Some of it is wonderful. The fact that I'm organized and color coded and all of that. All of that has been applied to my business. All of that's been applied to the show. All of that's been applied in other really good places. But it also creeps this wearing gross head up in places that are super unhealthy. And that holds me in this like unhealthy rhythm where now I'm just annoyed instead of like, it's just a fucking crumb. It's like not that big of a deal. See, now I have the hiccups again. Great.
Something's coming up. Interesting.
Oh, great. So if you have the hiccups, guys, stuff that you need to deal with is happening. Is this what your your information is?
Your body's talking to you, right?
Oh my gosh. There are so many things that I want to continue to talk to you about. And I know that every listener right now is going to be like, gotta call you. So my question is, do you work virtually? Because I know that you talked about doing virtual stuff after you've already been into somebody's home. Can you work with people virtually?
Yeah, I do. I've done right from step one online. There's ways that it can be approached. I don't necessarily have to be there to physically help you let go of things. It just is that it's a bit different of a process. Hey, if you want to fly me down to California, I'm happy to come down.
Come on down, girlfriend. Come on down. I might send you a couple of places, actually.
Oh, please.
Actually, I would never send you to the 9,000 square foot hoard. I'm not a monster.
Yeah. Yes. Short answer, yes, I do work online. We can address quite a bit online because it's really about the belief systems.
And I think we've all gotten so used to doing things online and on Zoom now that it's like back in the day that the PC pre-COVID, people would be like, what? No. Now it's like, what? I don't want to do it if it's not on Zoom.
I don't want to leave my house. What are you talking about?
I don't want to leave my house. I'm great here.
Oh, not good. Comfort zone.
I know. Well, I'm the queen of that. And some of that is I can't drive very much because of my legs. And so there's an element of that that's gotten in the way. But, I'm still out and about doing my thing. I take my wheelchair and I go out and, I go do my thing. But it's still less available for me to do the things that I would want to do. But I also am a little bit of a homebody. And even though I'm super outgoing and all of that, I'm actually very, very introverted and I like my personal space. I don't like people. Do not ring my doorbell. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't ring it. I have signs on the door that says, don't do it. Don't even leave me a voicemail. My voicemail says, don't leave me a
Oh, you're kidding. You're so funny.
Because I don't listen to them. So, it's like, it is what it is. Just call me and I see a missed call. I'll call you back. But anyways, is there anything left that you'd like to leave our listeners with? You've given me, my mind's exploding a little bit. I knew I needed you before this. And now I'm a little bit traumatized by this call. So thank you. We're going to have to unpack that. I'm kidding. I'm not traumatized at all. It just has given me a lot to think about. Stuff that I know that's kind of been creeping up that I've needed to address. And I didn't realize that this was as big of an issue as it was till a couple months ago when I really started to do the don't make my bed thing on Sundays, like literally. And it's not easy. And my sweetie's like, don't do it. And I just like pull the covers up, like kind of make it look like a man. He's like, no, we're just going to send the dogs in and they're going to mess up the bed. That's what we're going to have them do. And I'm just like, oh man. But is there anything that you'd like to leave our listeners with outside of all this wonderfulness?
Oh, that's a big question. I would say let go of the labels. That's the big thing. Let go of all the labels because that keeps you trapped in the past. It keeps you trapped in victimhood. And it's really about looking at what can you let go of? What can you release? And then what need to be cultivated? And what do you want to create? Like, what is your soul purpose? Because the main thing I do is get people back into alignment so you can live your soul purpose. So let's start with letting go of the labels and letting go of the stories.
Well, she's not talking about tuna fish labels, guys.
No. Well, maybe for you. Maybe for you. You're awesome.
Oh,
Thank you so much for sharing your experiences because then it helps people kind of understand the ways that they can approach it. So thank you for sharing that.
You got it. I mean, I'm always here to be vulnerable and outspoken because, it's so, I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but I have more stories to share that are around every single episode. And the people that I talk to, that I have some kind of a story that I can throw in. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I tend to be able to have some kind of something that I need to still work on. And it always shows itself and it makes me stronger as a woman and as a business owner and as a friend and as a partner to work on these things and to be vulnerable with you guys and to talk to you about the things that have happened in my world. And you guys come on the show and you talk about your vulnerabilities and the things that you've been through, and both healers and people that have gone through their traumas. And I really appreciate your time with us today, Tonia. It's been really fun.
Awesome. Thank you. It's been wonderful as well.
You got it. And I know you've got a bunch of stuff coming down the pike. All of her information is going to be in show notes. She's got some freebies. She's got a new website that's launching really, really soon. So I will have all of that in show notes for you guys. Thank you again for spending time with us here today. I really appreciate it. And I clearly need you.
Thank you. Anytime.
You got it. You are exclusively invited to share this trauma clearing, organizing, decluttering, VIP pain journey together. Let's get to the heart of how to heal with you by my side. Do you know somebody who is living in and with chronic pain or needs massive OCD fixes like myself? If you do, please send them our way here to the Pain Game Podcast. I'd love to connect with them and hear their heartfelt stories of strength, wisdom, and awesomeness. Please follow the Pain Game Podcast wherever you digest your podcast content. We will be there. Visit us at thepaingamepodcast.com and follow us on all the socials. Thanks for listening, my little VIPs. Catch you on the other side.